Alright, this video is going to talk about angle of elevation and depression and using trigonometry. The only thing with angle of elevation and depression is it's really just a fancy way for us to label our different triangles given word problems and other types of diagrams. So rather than go through an explanation, you have some diagrams in the packet of what angle of elevation and depression are. We're just going to go through word problems, set it up, and I'll show you where they wind up in each problem. Okay? So when you get a word problem like this, you want to try to draw it as realistically as possible. You don't have to be a great artist to do it. As you guys know, my drawings are not the greatest. But when you draw it so that it looks like a picture, it's going to be a lot easier for you to visualize where everything goes. So in this one, a nursery plants a new tree and attaches a guy wire to help support the tree. So if we draw a tree, well, first we'll draw the ground, and then we draw a tree. And again, as I draw a very poorly tree, we're going to attach a wire that goes into a stake. Okay? Now, we know that it is a 8-foot wire, so the wire itself that's right here is going to be 8 feet, and it talks about the angle of elevation. So the angle of elevation for any picture is always going to be where the horizontal line goes up. So this right here is our angle of elevation, and that here is going to be 42 degrees. And the question's asking us to find to the nearest foot, nearest tenth of a foot, the height of the connection point. So really, how tall is this tree? So we're going to put our x out here. So we know that we're going to use trigonometry. So we're going to set up our brace map for 42 degrees, because that's going to be our point of reference, because it's the angle of elevation. We're going to set up our O, our A, and our H. Our hypotenuse is 8. Our opposite is x, and the adjacent we don't have. So based on this, we are going to use the sine function, because we have our opposite and our adjacent. So if we set up sine of 42 equals x over 8, all right, from here we want to solve for x, so we are going to cross multiply. 8 times the sine of 42 equals x. Go right to our calculator, make sure that we are in degree mode, and we would have 8 times the sine of 42, and we're going to get 5.35. Now we do have to remember that it is rounding to the nearest tenth, so although it is 5.3530044 and so on, we're going to look at this 5, and it's going to push this 3, so our final answer is going to be 5.4 feet. Alright, so down here, this is our angle of elevation, and that is the biggest key vocabulary word that we're going to be talking about in this video. Alright, our second example down here is going to be our angle of depression. Now, it's really not much different, and again, try to draw these things so that they make the most sense to you. Alright, so from the top of a fire tower, I mean, right there I know I'm going to have the ground and some kind of tower. I have a forest ranger who's going to see his partner, and it's going to look something like this. Okay, now the angle of depression, okay, of 40 degrees, that's going to be from his horizontal viewpoint going down. So that's going to be here. So our angle of depression this time is going to go here. We know that the tower is 45 feet in height. This is where my tower is. And it wants to know how far from the base of the tower his friend is. So now, how do I solve this since my angle's up here and I really want to look at this triangle? Well, something that we've learned in the beginning of the year is this purple line is going to be parallel to this yellow line. So this angle down here is also going to be 40 degrees because they're alternate interior angles. So this may be our angle of depression. This is our angle of elevation, but they're exactly the same thing. They're just put in two different spots. So they're both going to be 40 degrees. And we're going to solve this problem the same exact way. We got 40 degrees. We're going to find our O, our A, and our H. Okay, our O is 45. Our A is x. And we don't have our hypotenuse. So it's tan of 40 equals 45 over x. Cross multiply here. X times tan of 40 equals 45. Now this one requires one more step. We got to divide the tan of 40 by both sides so that we can get x by itself. So we go to our calculator and we have 45 divided by the tan of 40, and we get 53.62. So 53.62, and again rounding to the nearest tenth, this 2 is going to force that 6 to stay the same, so our final answer is 53.6 feet. Alright, so that's 2 word problems that this can kind of get set up in. Again, the most important thing is that you try to draw it as realistic as possible. So again, just one last time what the angle of depression and elevation looks like if we're dealing with our point of view. Alright, elevation is going to be our eye level going upward. So this is our angle of elevation. And depression is when we have our eye level looking downward. This is depression. Alright, and remember, elevation and depression are the same thing because they're going to look like alternate interior angles.